When I talked about a big versus quick release, I made brief mention of the number of features involved in each approach. Scaling back the amount of work that you do is not a requirement to benefit from the other principles that I've discussed, but I do see one at a time as an opportunity. I really see it as a principle, a tool that you could put in your tool belt. And to understand that, I think it's important to point out that your end destination is the same, regardless if you're taking the big release or the quick release approach. It's just that with a quick release, you'll be doing one thing at a time. And the difference is you get one thing done and you get it out the door. So when I say one at a time, I don't mean develop one feature and then move on to the next with a bunch of features piled up waiting for the next big release. That's a big release. That's not a quick release. When I say one thing at a time, I mean get it out the door and into the hands of users to be contributing value to them. To be clear, with a one at a time approach, if you have 45 features, you'll have 45 individual releases doing one thing at a time and actually getting that one thing done. Now, if that seems daunting, then you might want to consider just some approach to smaller releases. Maybe a few things at a time or enough work for about a week. And then instead of one big release, you might have a handful of releases. Of course, then it's not many releases, but a smaller number. And if you do this, you'll reap many of the same benefits, because at the end of the day, when I say one at a time, I'm talking about doing less and getting it done before you move on to the next thing. Now, let's talk about some benefits, why I see this as an opportunity. The first benefit of doing fewer things at a time is that it can be pretty impressive to the people around you. Think about how my customer would have felt if we had told them that we couldn't get a release done for a few months, so we could create the report, but not until next year's taxes. And you'll just need to figure out how you're going to get that data for this year's taxes. This next benefit is my favorite. You can dramatically simplify how you prioritize your work if you scale back the amount of work that you do at a given point in time. And think about this. If you have a big release, chances are you are worried about prioritizing a long list of features that go into that release, because you probably can't change that list too much once you get started, or it might be a hassle to change that list. And if you do make drastic changes, then you have to consider the work that's already been done when you begin to make changes. Contrast that with a few things at a time or one at a time. You are just picking the one thing that you need to do today, or you are picking a few things that you need to do this week. That really can cut out a lot of the time that's wasted juggling long lists of priorities. In the process of simplifying prioritization, you can take a whole new approach to how you prioritize your work. And one technique I really like is to just try to find one valuable thing to work on today. Remember, you still need to decide what that is. And of course, then you might go back to prioritizing lists of possibilities. But why do that? Instead, look for one highly valuable thing that you could do today. And hey, if you don't pick the most valuable thing, you can do that tomorrow. The ease with which you can reprioritize what you're doing underscores the added degree of flexibility that you have. Just think about accommodating last-minute requests. Not a problem. You can just work on that tomorrow if it's the most important thing to do, the most valuable thing to do at that point in time. And last, but definitely not least, is confidence. If you are working on one thing at a time, when something goes wrong, you have one thing to look at. No matter where it happens or when it happens, you aren't looking for a needle in a haystack like you would be if you're working on 45 things at a time in a big release.